Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Welcome back. I'm so grateful you're here because I know that you could be anywhere else and you're here with me, and I love that. And I just appreciate every single one of you that have reached out and let me know that you enjoyed the podcast and the episodes. And I want to hear more from you. So if you want to hear certain topics or things, make sure to let me know within the comments. So I want you to take a deep breath with me and just land here in this moment in your body because you're safe here. This is our space to be real, to be honest, to hold the hard stuff together. Because today we're talking about something that's both an art and necessity, saying goodbye to toxic relationships for good. And you know, this is my specialty. This is what I worked on in the beginning of my whole practice. And this is what I've been really prone on teaching people before I kind of really went into more towards authentic relationship with yourself and other people. But I wanted to make sure I recognize those who are in those toxic relationships and not just walking away temporarily when things get heated, not just taking a break while hoping things will change, but actually closing the door and keeping it closed. Now, I know that phrase when it comes to toxic relationships, I'm putting in quotation marks, gets thrown around a lot these days, sometimes so much that it loses its meaning. But I'm talking about those relationships that consistently drain your energy, that make you question your worth, that have you walking on eggshells or twisting yourself into pretzels just to keep the peace. The ones where you give and give and give, and somehow you're still the problem. Maybe it's a romantic partner who makes you feel crazy for having feelings. Maybe it's friends or it's a friend who only reaches out when they need something but disappears when you're not going, when you're the one going through it. Maybe it's a family member whose love comes with so many conditions that you've forgotten what unconditional care feels like. And here's what I want you to know right from the start. Recognizing a relationship as toxic doesn't make you ungrateful, disloyal, or weak. It makes you awake. It makes you someone who's finally ready to choose your peace over keeping others comfortable. But saying goodbye, like really saying goodbye, is an art form. It requires strategy, it requires strength, and most importantly, it requires self compassion as you navigate one of the hardest things a human heart can do. So, whether you're finally ready to close that door for good, or you're still gathering the courage to even acknowledge what needs to change, this conversation is for you. We're going to walk through this together with love, with wisdom, and with the understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave. So let's start with recognition piece, okay? Because sometimes we can be the last to see what everyone else around us has been seeing for months or even years. Toxic relationships often develop gradually, like slowly turning up the heat at a frog in water, which I love this example because understand that when the water goes into warm water and it turns hot, the frog does not notice it's boiling, so it stays in it. But when it's boiling water and the frog goes in, it knows immediately to get out, right? So a lot of this time, people get so mad that they end up in this place. It happens so gradually at times. So it's nothing to do with how you're doing things or being your fault in any way. So by the time you realize what's happening, you are already deeply affected, is which I just want you to really think about and know. Because here are some signs it's time to say goodbye for good. I just want to give you the signs first so you just know what to look out for. First, you find yourself constantly making excuses for their behavior to others and to yourself. They've been stressed lately. Oh, they didn't mean it that way. They had a difficult childhood. Well, context and compassion matters. I'm going to give you that. If you spend more time explaining away someone's treatment of you than enjoying their presence, that's telling you something important. And I remember being that person, okay? I had a whole script prepared for why my ex's behavior was understandable, justifiable, even my fault sometimes. I was their personal PR manager. If you think about it, we really do act like this, working overtime to maintain the image that everything was fine. But, girl, when you're that exhausted from defending someone's actions, you might want to ask yourself why those actions need so much defending in the first place. Second, your other relationships start suffering because this one person takes so much of your energy. You're either venting about them constantly to friends and family, or you're so drained from dealing with their dysfunction that you have nothing left to offer the people who actually pour into you. Third, you've started to lose yourself in that relationship. Your opinions change to match theirs, your boundaries disappear when they push against them, your dreams get smaller because they don't support your growth. You catch yourself thinking, I don't even recognize who I am anymore. And this hits different for those of us who were raised to prioritize relationships above ourselves, especially just my Black and brown women who grew up being told that keeping family together and making relationships work was our responsibility. We were taught that our adaptability was a virtue, that our ability to handle difficult people was a strength, and those can be quite beautiful qualities. I just want to give you that. Until they become the very things that keep us stuck in situations that harm our spirits. Fourth, the relationship operates on a cycle where things get bad, you threaten to leave, or you actually do leave, they promise to change, things get better temporarily, then gradually slide back to dysfunction. This cycle can repeat for years, with each quote-unquote good period giving you just enough hope to stay through the next bad period. And finally, and this is crucial, you realize you're staying not because you're happy, but because you're scared. Scared of starting over, scared of being alone, scared of admitting you were wrong about someone, scared of dealing with the guilt and grief that comes with leaving. But, my beautiful soul, let me tell you something. Fear is not a foundation for a healthy relationship. Love shouldn't require you to abandon your truth, your peace, or your well-being. The right relationships will challenge you to grow, yes, but they will not require you to shrink to fit. Now, I want to acknowledge that leaving isn't always simple or immediately possible. So I see the people that don't have that disadvantage at this moment. There might be financial considerations, children involved, safety concerns, or cultural or family pressures that complicate the situation. And if you're in an abusive situation, please reach out to professionals who can help you create a safe exit plan. But even when the logistics are complicated, you can start the internal work of saying goodbye, emotionally detaching, which I talked about in the last episode, planning for your future, building those support systems you'll need. Sometimes a goodbye happens in your heart long before it happens in your physical reality, and that's okay too. The point is to start somewhere, to stop making their comfort more important than your well-being, to stop hoping they'll change and start planning for the life you deserve with or without them. But before we talk about how to leave, can we get honest about why we stay too long in toxic relationships? Because understanding your patterns helps you break them. And one of the biggest reasons is something called sunk cost fallacy. The idea that because you've already invested so much time, energy, and emotion into this relationship, you can't, quote unquote, waste all that by leaving now. You think about the years you've put in, the memories you've made, the potential you'll still see. It feels like giving up. But girl, time already spent isn't a reason to spend more time in a situation that's harming you. You wouldn't keep eating a meal that was making you sick just because you already paid for it, right? The investment you've made just lost. It isn't lost when you leave. It's the education that taught you what you won't accept anymore. Another reason we stay in is the trauma bond. In toxic relationships, the intense highs and lows create a chemical addiction in your brain. The unpredictability of their love and attention triggers the same reward pathways as gambling or drugs. You're literally addicted to the cycle of pain and relief, rejection and reconciliation. This is especially powerful because during the good times in quotation marks, you feel like you're finally getting the love you've been craving. But that love is only so intoxicating because of how badly you've been starved for it during the bad times. It's like being grateful for water in a desert. But in a healthy relationship, water should be consistently available, not a rare gift you have to earn or suffer for. Then there's the hope addiction. You become addicted to their potential rather than dealing with their reality. You see glimpses of who they could be. Maybe they have moments of vulnerability, or they make promises to change, or you remember how they used to be in the beginning, and you hold on to that possibility like it's more real than their consistent behaviors, consistent patterns of behaviors. I get it. I really do. Hope is beautiful, but hope without consistent action to back it up becomes a prison. You end up living in a fantasy of what could be instead of dealing with what is. And so for my Black and brown women, there are often additional layers to consider. Maybe you were raised with messages about loyalty to family or community that make leaving feel like betrayal. Maybe you've watched the women in your family endure difficult relationships and learned that staying through hardship was that strong women do. Maybe you're carrying cultural beliefs about the sanctity of certain relationships that make leaving feel not just difficult, but morally wrong. These cultural values often come from beautiful places: the importance of family, the strength found in perseverance, the commitment to working through challenges together. But sometimes these values get twisted and used to justify accepting treatment that no one should have to endure. True strength isn't staying in every situation no matter what. True strength is knowing when to fight for something and when to walk away. True loyalty isn't accepting abuse in the name of family or commitment. True loyalty is to your own well-being and to healthy relationships that honor your full humanity, just your full self. Another reason we stay is shame. We're embarrassed that we got involved with someone toxic, embarrassed that we stayed so long, embarrassed that we went back, that we ignored the red flags that seem so obvious in hindsight. We worry about what people will think, what people will say, whether they judge us for our choices. But let me tell you something. The people who truly love you aren't keeping a scorecard of your relationship mistakes. They want you to be happy and safe, and they'll celebrate you for having the courage to choose yourself, regardless of how long it took you to get there. And finally, many of us stay because we don't believe we deserve better. Somewhere along the way, we internalize the message that this is the best we're going to get, that our standards are too high, that we should be grateful for any attention or affection, even if it comes with a side of disrespect. But let me tell you what you deserve. You deserve consistency. You deserve kindness. You deserve to be chosen every day, not just when it's convenient. You deserve love that doesn't require you to dim your light or silence your voice. You deserve relationships that add to your peace, not consistently or constantly disrupt it. Recognizing these patterns isn't about beating yourself up for staying too long. It's about understanding the very human reasons why leaving can be so difficult, so you can have compassion for yourself as you work toward freedom. Now let's talk about the actual art of saying goodbye, not just disappearing or having another fight that leads to a temporary breakup, but creating a clean, final ending that honors your decision to choose yourself. First, get clear on your why before you have the conversation. Write it down if you need to. This relationship is ending because it consistently harms your well-being, not because you're having a bad day or because you want to punish them. When you're crystal clear on your reasons, you're less likely to get pulled back into the old patterns during the goodbye conversation. I learned this the hard way, and I tried to leave a toxic situation multiple times before, but I went into those conversations hoping they would understand, validate my feelings, and maybe even fight for the relationship in a healthy way. That did not happen. Instead, I got manipulation, guilt trips, and promises that were broken within weeks. It wasn't until I went into that final conversation with the mindset of, I'm informing you of my decision, not asking for your permission, that I was actually able to leave for good. Second, choose your method thoughtfully. In person might feel like the right thing to do, right, as in quotation marks. But if this person has a history of manipulation, emotional outbursts, or wearing down your resolve, a phone call or even a carefully crafted text message might be more effective. The goal is to communicate your decision clearly, not to subject yourself to one final round of toxicity. And I know this is an unpopular opinion because people talk about when it comes to letting someone know that you're leaving, that it should be through phone call. It does not have to be if it does not feel safe for you, if you know their patterns. You do not have to do that. For situations involving abuse or threats, please prioritize your safety over social necessities. Sometimes the healthiest goodbye is no goodbye at all, just a quiet exit with proper safety measures in place. Third, keep it simple and resist the urge to justify, argue, defend, or explain. We call this jade. Toxic people are skilled at turning your explanations into opportunities to argue, your reasons into things they can fix, your feelings into evidence that you're overreacting. A simple statement like, I've decided this relationship isn't healthy for me and I'm ending it, says everything that needs to be said. You don't owe them a dissertation on their flaws or a detailed breakdown of every way they've hurt you. You are not their therapist, their teacher, or their mother. You're someone who's choosing to prioritize your own well-being. Fourth, prepare for the extinction burst. When toxic people realize they're actually losing control, they often escalate their behavior dramatically before giving up. They might love bomb you with promises and gifts. They might threaten to hurt themselves. They might spread lies about you to mutual friends, or they might oscillate between begging and attacking. This escalation doesn't mean you should stay. It means your decision to leave was correct. Healthy people don't respond to boundaries with manipulation and threats. Document any concerning behavior, lean on your support system, and remember that the reaction is not your responsibility. Fifth, prepare yourself emotionally for the grief that comes with endings. Even when the ending is necessary and healthy, you might feel sad, guilty, scared, or even temporarily doubtful about your decision. These feelings don't mean you're making a mistake. They only mean you're human with a heart that connected to someone who ultimately couldn't honor that connection appropriately. So let yourself feel these emotions without using them as evidence that you should go back. Grief is the price we pay for having loved, and you can grieve what was good while still knowing that leaving was right. 6, create physical and digital boundaries immediately. Block their number and follow on social media. Avoid places where you're likely to run into them if possible. This isn't about being petty. It's about removing temptation and protecting your healing process. Every text notification, every social media post, every accidental encounter resets your healing clock. You need space to remember who you are without their influence, to rebuild your confidence, to reconnect with your own voice and truth. And finally, you need to build your support system before you need it. Tell trusted friends and family about your decisions so they can help you stay accountable when your resolve wavers. Having people who can remind you why you left when you're feeling lonely or nostalgic is invaluable. Remember, saying goodbye to toxic relationships is an act of self-love, even when it doesn't feel like love in the moment. It's you choosing to create space for the kind of connections that will only nourish your spirit. It's you deciding that your peace is not negotiable, that your well-being is not up for debate. You're not abandoning someone, you're saving yourself. And that salvation is not selfish, it's sacred. Now we're going to go into talk about the part nobody warns you about. Those moments when you want to go back, when your resolve weakens, when you start romanticizing what you left behind, because staying gone can sometimes be harder than leaving in the first place. First, understand that the urge to reconnect is normal and temporary. Your brain is literally rewiring itself from the addiction patterns that toxic relationships created. just like someone detoxing from substances might crave what was harming them. You might find yourself missing someone who was bad for your peace. This doesn't mean you made a mistake, it means you're healing. I remember about 3 months after I left a particular toxic situation, I find myself scrolling through old photos, remembering only the good times, conveniently forgetting why I left in the first place. This happens, this is normal. I even started drafting a text message about how maybe we could try again. But thank God for my good friends who reminded me of my own words from just weeks earlier about how I relived I felt to be free. Just how I just relieved I felt during that whole entire situation. That's why I always tell people, write yourself a letter when you're clear about why you left. Detail the patterns, the pain, the ways the relationship dimmed your light. Seal it up and open it when you're tempted to go back. Let your wise self remind your nostalgic self why you made this choice. Second, recognize that toxic people often resurface right when you're starting to heal. I find this happens over and over, constantly. As soon as you start to heal, they pop up. They have an uncanny ability to sense when you're moving on and will often reach out with apologies, promises, or just a casual thinking of you messages designed to test your boundaries. Don't mistake their timing for fate or their contact for proof that they've changed. People who have genuinely transformed don't typically reach out to people they've hurt without first doing extensive internal work. Most of the time, they're responding to their own discomfort with losing control, not to genuine remorse or growth. Third, I need you to create new routines and fill the space they used to occupy. One of the hardest parts about leaving toxic relationships is the void they leave behind. Even negative attention can become familiar and the silence can feel uncomfortable. But this is your opportunity to rediscover who you are without their influence. What did you love before you met them? What dreams did you set aside? What friendships did you neglect? What parts of yourself did you suppress to keep peace? I love what my therapist told me once back then. Instead of asking, how do I get over them? Ask, how do I get back to me? That shift in focus changed everything. You're not trying to forget someone, you're trying to remember yourself. I want you to stay also connected to your support system, especially in those vulnerable moments. Don't isolate when you're struggling. That's when toxic people often try to worm their way back in. Reach out to friends, family, a therapist, anyone who can remind you of your worth and when you've temporarily forgotten it. And I want to address something specific for my Black and brown women who might be navigating family or cultural pressure to reconcile. Sometimes the pressure to go back doesn't just come from within, it comes from people who mean well but don't understand the full picture of what you endured. They make comments such as, their family or marriage is supposed to be hard. They said they're sorry. You should forgive. What about the children? These voices can be louder than your own inner wisdom sometimes, but remember, forgiveness doesn't require reconnection. You can forgive someone and still choose not to have them in your life. You can honor family values while also honoring your need for safety and peace. Your healing is not selfish. Your boundaries are not punishment. Your decision to stay gone is not evidence of a hard heart. It's evidence of a heart that's finally learned to protect itself. Finally, trust the process and trust yourself. Some days will be harder than others. Some triggers will catch you off guard. Some well-meaning people will question your decision, but deep down, you know why you left. You know what you've experienced. You know what you deserve. When doubt creeps in, come back to your body. How do you feel when you imagine going back versus moving forward? Your body keeps the score. It remembers the stress, the walking on eggshells, the constant vigilance that relationship required. Trust that wisdom. You didn't leave because you were weak. You left because you were finally strong enough to choose yourself. That strength doesn't disappear just because healing is hard. It grows every day you choose to stay gone. Every day you choose your peace over their chaos. Every day you choose your future over your past. As we come to the close of our time together, I want you to hear this. Saying goodbye to toxic relationships isn't about being cold or unforgiving. It's about being wise and self-preserving. It's about understanding that some people are meant to be lessons, not permanent fixtures in your life. You are not responsible for fixing anyone. You are not required to stay in any relationship that consistently harms your well being. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. What you are responsible for is your own healing, your own peace, your own growth. And sometimes, often, that means making the hard choice to walk away from what's familiar and move toward what's healthy. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to invite you to sign up for a weekly newsletter where we share intimate reflections, practical tools, and gentle reminders that go straight to your inbox, like having a heart-to-heart conversation that supports you exactly where you are. The link to subscribe in the show notes, and it's completely free. It's just tips to be able to help you along the way and little notes you can take with you. And make sure to share it with somebody who needs this. So we always have a friend that needs it to be able to share and reach out to more people who just need this assistance to getting back to themselves. I also love to hear from you. What's helped you say goodbye to toxic relationships? What challenges have you faced in staying gone? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Share your insights in the comments or connect with me on Instagram at imsamantha.a or at Moving Beyond You on TikTok. Remember, the art of saying goodbye to toxic relationships is ultimately the art of saying yes to yourself. It's choosing your peace over their chaos, your future over your past, and your well-being over their comfort. You deserve relationships that celebrate your growth, not stunted. You deserve love that feels like freedom, not captivity. You deserve connections that add to your peace, not constantly disrupt it. And when you choose to walk away from what's toxic, you're not just ending something, you're beginning something beautiful. You're beginning the journey back to yourself, the journey toward the love you actually deserve. So until next time, remember, your peace is sacred, your boundaries are holy, and your courage to choose yourself, even when it's hard, even when others don't understand, is one of the most beautiful acts of self-love you can practice. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for every step you take toward the life that's waiting for you on the other side of goodbye. Until next time, see you next week.